I particularly liked the part where you sort of mentioned about how you're laying foundations and developing pathways. So the idea that you're potentially using reading to your baby as an opportunity to introduce concepts, and I know you sort of mentioned like emotions, and I also really enjoyed the part where you were talking about how you draw on as much or as little as you or your baby can from each page. So you were sort of mentioning you might stop and talk about some of the specifics of what's on one page, or you might just continue on with the book. What would you say are the most important cues to, I guess, look out for while you're reading to your baby?
Listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
Be guided by them. There will be times of the day when your child will be more able to engage with the book and with you reading a book than others, and it will vary. For some people that's first thing in the morning, for some it's late at night, for some in the queue at the supermarket, although we don't go to the supermarket. Anywhere, there is no set length of time, there is no set task. When you think about what a baby is trying to get from, potentially can get, they're getting which way a book goes. How do we do that? So even if all you get is that they be, if you're going from left to right, they're seeing that and they're laying that down. So you won't get the whole package in one go.
Mm-hmm.
And so that if that means 5 minutes, if that means 3 minutes on any given day and 50 on another, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Just have a go and keep having a go and sing to them and rhyme with them, because all of those are all part of introducing story and understanding and attention. All of those things are elements, and they can all happen. They don't always happen at the same time, and they don't always happen, in an order that seems logical.
Right. So I guess the idea is to be a bit opportunistic with your literacy experiences and just try to make the best of the experiences incidentally.
Yes, but also you can be quite intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be that you find that the best time when your child is most attentive is just after a meal before they go to sleep. Or you might find that they're much better when they've just woken up and you're changing their nappy. Or you might find that they listen while you're feeding them. It's all experimental.
Mm-hmm.
And it won't necessarily stay the same through that journey. Some days they will be not interested in listening at this time, but really interested at this time. Other days they might be happy to do it the whole time, the whole day, every time you do it.
Wonderful. So I guess that comes back to that idea about not feeling pressured to finish off a book just because you've started it.
No.
Have a go at a page. If it's not working, let it go. Don't force it.
That's right. And if it's a story you don't like, don't use it.
Absolutely.
Until they are big enough to say, I don't want that one, I want this one, again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Use the control that you have.
Oh, absolutely.
The story that you tell.
Use it while it lasts.
By the same token, if you need to study something about Timor-Leste with your tiny baby, you can read something like that out loud, and you are communicating some of the things that you need to. They're not going to go, hang on a minute, that wasn't in chapter 3. That was actually in chapter 4 and it was down the bottom. So it's about listening to the sound of your voice, the sound of spoken language, the cadences, the shape of language, which is why song and rhyme is so powerful for young babies, young children.
Wonderful. I really loved the books that you chose in the presentation.
Yes, so did I.
Yeah, they were great, weren't they?
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about how, if you're an absolute novice and you don't have a collection at home, either your baby's born or your baby's on the way, how do you select books to suit your baby or to suit your intentions?
Okay, so that if you were starting a library from scratch, and the chances are you won't, chances are you will have some things around the house and you will be gifted some. And you have libraries when we're allowed to go in them with lots of things. But if you're looking for some to start, the reason I chose this one is just because it has at its base.
Yeah, it's good. So many different levels to that book. It's great.
Lovely, isn't it?
It's so simple at this level. There's no distraction in the page. There is a single image set in a really plain background. Yet, as your baby becomes more familiar with it, there are so many other things you can do with it.
Yes.
So you can use it in different ways. And it may just be that, first of all, when they start touching it, all they want to do is put their fingers in here and turn the page. And that's absolutely fine because they're learning about page turning. The other thing that's really interesting about board books, the hard books like this, is if you open them fully, then they will open
the next bit.
The next page. So little fingers, once they're big enough, will just start. It's sort of cueing what can happen, what happens next.
And they don't have to be particularly dexterous to manipulate the book themselves.
And I mean they're robust as well. Then Bixie has a narrative, but also what it has is just quite simple images. This one is just about the cockatoos and the noises they make, and about the kangaroos and the noises they make. So it may be that you go through this one, not even doing stories, but just looking at the animals and listening to the sounds and mimicking those and cueing those. And again, this one will open, if you let go of the page, open that one, it will open the next one. It also, being Alison Lester, is written and illustrated by a master, and so the language is beautifully rhythmic and simple. And the test of a really good book is if you can open it and read it perfectly the first time without stumbling over any of the words or the sentences, then you've chosen the work of a master.
Yes.
It is really, really difficult to do that. Here we go. Here's another master. Splish Splash Stucky. Again, we have really simple images with clear backgrounds, easy for babies to look at, but something different. And you can talk about, look, we've got different coloured flowers and different shaped flowers. But you don't need to. You might just be doing the quack, quack, quack. And that starts to cue an anticipation. And so I'm choosing books that have really simple ideas. But, you know, let's be frank, if you're reading them a lot of times, you need to be able to stand them day after day.
Very true.
So choosing quality ones is a really good idea.
Yes.
And this is so this is a lovely one. I did, of course, have to choose from, you know, I have a few. Can you see that bookshelf?
Yes.
Those two bottom shelves are all picture books.
Lovely.
I have an enormous collection. Now, it may be, so this is a great one. I really like it. By Chris Horton. Is also very quirky, kind of dry humour, very funny. And again, this one's about, oh no, George, something happens all the time and poor old George just puts his foot in it or does the wrong thing every time. Some little people will be really happy to sit still for the duration of a slightly longer text. Again, master storyteller and illustrator.
Absolutely.
With really, really strong rhythms. Simple images on this one side, text on another. Not too many picture books will work like this now, but when Lily Dodd brought these out, this was, you know, it was a masterpiece. These stories were they're fabulous, and the language is fabulous. And I remember being in a hospital waiting room, and there was a baby who was 8 months old who listened to a succession of very Claire stories while mum waited to go into chemo. And it was just amazing. And that's what it is about, building up a habit and an expectation and a practice of reading to them and with them, so that by the time that they're really able to make decisions about whether they stay still or not, you've already got this habit of listening, this habit of absorbing the information and watching image. It's already bedded in. But you don't get it all in one go again. And they will all do it at different rates.
Lily Dodd came to mind when you mentioned about the vocabulary, I think, in the talk, Claire, where, you know, there's some like cacophony in one of her books. It's not a word that babies are going to understand, but they get the meaning through the story without having to actually know the individual words.
Yes.
So she's very clever at introducing sort of stronger vocabulary.
Beautiful language, yes.
Know, but the language is still beautiful and rhythmic and
Yes, I agree, Ray. Yeah. Boisterous,
lots of different, even sort of silly made up words, but they still make sense throughout the story.
Firm favourites at our house as well.
Me too, Kiwi author.
Lovely.
This one is actually really battered. This one has been in my family since my children were small. And the most favourite books are the rattiest, and they stay because they just show how much love those books have had over the years. I've also had ones called It, Zwibble and the Race for the Universe or something, which is impossible to say once and dreadful to say more than once. And of course it became the favourite of one of my children, and I had to read it 100 million times.
Yes.
Actually, that's one thing I don't know that I mentioned too much, is for the repetition of stories. Your child may decide that you need to read the same story again and again and again and again. Now, that might drive you insane, and you may think that you are shortchanging your child by not offering variety, but it's not the case. There are some research that talks about bedding down information for some kids requires those repeated meanings, and you'll find never soon enough that they want to move on to another story. If they fix on a story, it's guaranteed to be the one you don't like, but it's doing something for them.
Absolutely.
So go with it, and then try and slip in some other ones as well.
It gives them that confidence too, though, because they learn a book by rote, and they think they're reading it. I have a clear memory of my daughter at 3 years old reading Brown Bear to my mum on Skype back in New Zealand, and she read it beautifully. Well, she read it because she obviously she didn't know the words, but she knew the story by heart. She knew when to turn the page. The pictures were great. That's another great book, Brown Bear. The page cues are really obvious, and very important part of reading, I think. Yeah,
we use those in our early years program. We've got Brown Bear as one of our regulars.
Yeah.
I remember my daughter at 3 as well could recite Kipper stories off by heart because we had the audio collection, which is read by Dawn French, who I love. So I would happily have that playing in the car over and over again because I love her so much.
Yeah.
And then we bought the hard copy books of Kipper, and because she'd heard Dawn French read it so many times, in fact, she'd introduce it and she'd say, Kipper by Mick Inkpen, read by Dawn French. But, and she would actually read through, but it was that sort of memory, and it's become an absolutely love. We will not get sick of Kipper at this house. She was my first. I've got 3 now, and my youngest is now 3. So we've had close to 8 solid years of Kipper in the car. I think we can all recite it by rote.
I'm already doing it from you start saying, Brown Bear, what do you see? Yeah.
That's right, it does.
Yeah.
And that's where you mentioned about the rhythms and the cadences and the repetition that just allows that prediction, and you just sort of go into that lilty sort of rhythm. And it's lovely.
Yeah. All these new mums have this to look forward to.
Oh, yes. I think if you can't recite Where is the Green Sheep,
Yeah.
You know, by the end of your first year, get onto it.
It's another favourite.
Yes, Mem Fox books is
for sure.
Can't go wrong.
I found it very hard to read 10 Little Fingers and 10 Little Toes to my daughter, though, because I would cry halfway through the book.
Yeah, very beautiful.
It's one of those ones that, she's another great author. Very emotive books sometimes.
Absolutely. Now, what I thought I might do, if it's okay, is sort of open the floor. If anyone has got a question or a comment for Claire, please, by all means, switch on your mic. It might be a little bit difficult. There are 15 of us, so we might sort of just have to listen out for, I guess, whoever speaks loudest and speaks first gets in, and then we'll try to go through that way. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Claire?
It's Carmen.
Hi, Carmen.
Just a quick question. We do a lot of made-up rhymes as we're comforting our little boy Oliver. Is that still effective, or should we actually be scrapping that and doing a lot of repeat rhymes, because we obviously can't remember what we're making up each time?
No, it's just as valid as anything else. I watched a program some years ago that talked about it is the sound of your voice, that across many cultures, the words might be completely different, but the rhythms are the same, or fall into a number of patterns. So if you're making them up, it's the sound of your voice. It's the rise and fall and the change, so that if it's unique every time, then that just makes it easier for everybody listening to it.
Yeah.
So it's just as valid, just as, well, it's comforting your child. It's establishing a habit too, that these sort of rhythms will provide comfort. So that when they get to a point where their emotions are running, that they're laying down so many neural pathways that their brains can't keep up with their bodies, then having established a rhythm of that sort of, or a habit of that sort of rhythm and settling, you'll find you'll be able to shortcut some of that because it brings them back to you.
Okay.
So it's, yes, keep going. I'd love to hear some of them.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Carmen. Is there anyone else who's got a question or a comment for Claire?
I have a question either for you, Elle, or Claire. And when we do our baby rhyme time sessions, we have the parents read a book to their baby at the end. I have about 10, 15 babies in the session, and it gets quite noisy. And I don't know whether that's a valid thing to be doing. I just wonder what you guys do, whether each parent reads to the child at any point in your sessions, or how that might work a little bit better, maybe. Or whether that's okay if it's hard to hear,
Look, we do include we call it a choral read during our baby bounce and our wriggle and read sessions, and we kind of read the room as to how much time we give it, because it does get quite noisy, as you can imagine.
30 babies.
You're not just imagining it, you're experiencing it too. It is. I do always remind the parents, similar to some of the advice Claire's given, like if your baby's not up for a read right now, just because we're doing it, scrap it. We've got egg shakers, we've got scarves. Just chat to your baby, let them crawl around, let them have a wander, sing them a song. So we're providing the opportunity to read together.
So are you reading the same book at the same time, or different?
Usually, yes. Yes.
Right,
so it'll be a copy that we've got, 60 copies of Brown Bear. We've got Where is the Green Sheep, 10 Little Fingers, 10 Little Toes. So we give them that opportunity, or to read the same one, but we're sort of encouraging them to read them at their own pace. And just it's almost that sort of supported opportunity to read babies' cues, and not to feel self-conscious if their baby's the only one in the room pushing it away. I've seen some really beautiful interactions. Our more active babies, a couple of them will crawl into the middle, and they're sort of playing together with egg shakers and scarves. And one of the mums came over and read to both of the babies. And just, no pressure, just sort of read it. One of them would look, they'd sort of look and then crawl away and then come back for another read. And I think she ended up with 4 or 5 babies that crawled in to hear her read on this particular occasion. And I think go for it, but don't panic if it's not perfect.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Still a valid thing to do on top of songs and rhymes. So, all good.
But
thank you.
I don't know if Claire would Claire might have something,
Claire?
a different idea about it.
The sessions I'm running are different. They're usually for a purpose.
Yeah.
So if they're for babies, I'm usually the one who's reading.
Okay.
But when I do the rhymes and songs as part of it, I'm encouraging the parents to do, or whoever's brought the child, to do, connect individually with their child. I've never done sort of with lots of books, but then that's not the sort of setup that I've had. And if I go into a kinder to do a session about stories, then that's just chaos if we start doing that. So for me, that just hasn't been a function of the sort of things that I would be doing.
Yeah, so in a baby time, Claire, if you're reading to them, are you reading more to the parents to model maybe language and how a book can be read, or are you reading to the babies? What is it, a bit of both?
I will do both. Yeah. So I'm reading to the babies, but I'm also doing asides and note it, and say, look, do this, try this. But my primary focus is on the babies, and then if I'm doing rhymes, then again, I'm addressing the babies, but I'm also aware that I'm also
modelling
the opportunity to model doing those particular rhymes.
Yeah, I think we do that part well. That's that one's okay. All right, thank you.
Wonderful.
That's good.
Thanks, Raywin.
That's all right.
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yep. We can hear you, Tappins. Go ahead.
So my baby's been really engaged in reading from the very start, but he's just hit 6 months, and now all he wants to do is just grab the book and eat it. So,
that's pretty usual.
So I'm finding that I'm hardly reading anything in comparison to what he was able to engage with. Unless I sit like really far away from him where he can't reach it. So is that sort of what I need to do now, or have a bit of both the playing?
So allow, that's why these have got a lot of substance in them, so that they can get quite a lot of chews per book. And if you think about the way they develop physically, first of all, they start to be able to lift their head, then they can start to move their upper body, then they can start to control their hip and start to sit up, then you get your form, all of those pathways. So what's happening is that your baby's moved from being a passive participant to being an active one. And one of the first senses is they're very oral. And so for them, that's entirely valid way of engaging with a book. But if you want to continue the stories, then you also do that out of their reach.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good question, though. I bet that alleviated a few worries across the group.
I'm still trying to find some of my chewed books. I've got quite a lot that are very chewed.
Oh, I could find you a handful. I don't have any on hand, but yes, I've got some that are, close to needing to be replaced, to be honest. But I think I would still keep the tattered versions as well.
Yes.
Yeah, they do come back to it, Tuppence. I had a second daughter the same. She just got busy when she started moving around and she wouldn't sit for a story. So I did a bit of what Claire was talking about. If I did have a couple of minutes where she might sit for that time, just not actually reading the story, but talking about things in the story because she didn't have the attention. But still lots of songs and rhymes as well, and on the change table when she had no way to escape. That's right. It's a really good time to do rhymes.
Absolutely. Or like Claire mentioned earlier, sitting up in the high chair when they're busy with their hands and mouth eating.
Read a story. Exactly.
I showed a story then.
And she did come back to it. She loves reading now, and she's,
don't forget making up stories or oral stories.
Mm.
There will be stories that you'll be familiar with from your childhood, or from all sorts of different sources, or totally made up one. The story of what we did today, the story of what we're going to do tomorrow. Or the outrageous story of the beanstalk out the front window, and look what would happen if I, and the bigger the gestures and all of those things. Nobody can see you except them, and they're quite happy to see you.
Oh, and they just think you're magical, don't they? They don't think you're silly yet.
No.
I did love the part you mentioned in your presentation, Claire, about how you sort of said, don't be ashamed to sing until they're about 8 or 9 when they might start telling you.
Yes.
One of my sons told me that the
magic
reason
wears off.
radios were invented was
Oh,
so
lovely.
I didn't have to sing.
Nice.
That's charming. And also, you know, timeline-wise, that's inaccurate and unfair.
Yeah.
Indeed. I hadn't even thought of that, but thanks.
Yeah, that's all right. Wonderful. Does anyone else have any comments that they'd like to, or questions that they'd like to ask of Claire? We're okay. I think maybe we've covered everything. Is there anyone who'd like to? May I ask where you're from and what encouraged you to tune in? Like from what aspect you sort of approached this opportunity? Don't all go at once.
Hi, I'm Ginny. I'm from Kyneton Library, which is part of the North Central Goldfields Library. So there's about 2 other of us here. There's Georgina.
Lovely.
And I think we're just coming from that perspective of delivering programs, and it's just lovely to hear the mums talk too. And that's what we really need to learn, is to listen to the mums and get going. And it's just lovely to hear little snippets of how it, because I mean, it's been a fair while since I was at that position. So it's just lovely to hear those little steps that people are taking and just how important it is that they are the most wonderful things, and the sound of their voice is the most brilliant thing. So what sound you made, they're going to love it. Let's say that's where we're coming from. I love, well, where I'm coming from. It's been great, Claire, to hear your really words of wisdom. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm the same as Ginny. So I've met Claire before. She probably remembers, at the Romsey Library with her grandbaby, and she did a session with us in story time. So when Georgina actually put me onto this, and it's just good to always refresh. I mean, we've done PDs before on obviously reading with babies and things, but it's great to just go back over some of those things and refresh your mind, get a few more tips of ways you can improve your own sessions. And yeah, that's why we thought we would have a little log on and see what was happening.
Lovely.
Yeah, so
lovely. You're very,
bit of
very,
PD
very
for
welcome.
us.
It's lovely, and especially at a time like this, I think as librarians, you miss the people. I miss the mums and the babies so much.
Absolutely.
Baby bounce is my favourite time of the week. They are the nicest people. You know, mums who bring their babies to the libraries. You are like handed the most beautiful audience, and there's so many times just watching them engage, I'm almost moved to tears. I'm a bit ridiculous like that, so I'll be almost crying just because I'm watching these beautiful interactions, and I miss those so much.
Me too, Elle. Yeah.
So when the world is safe again and we can open the doors, you know, can't wait to welcome them all back in with very, very open arms. Yeah.
And try some different things, and just a way to phrase things to parents as well. It's always good to hear someone else talk about, because sometimes I personally feel a little uncomfortable about how to broach that research and that background, you know, to parents, because you don't want to sound like you're preaching.
Not at all.
And I think so. Hearing Claire speak is it's another way to just get my head back around some of the ways we can approach talking about books and why reading is important. So, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Raywin. Is there anything anyone else would like to add? I'm going to give some just some quiet wait time, just for a few seconds, if anyone's.
Sorry, it's Carmen again.
Hi, Carmen.
And apologies, I haven't seen the presentation yet, so I might be.
Please don't apologise.
Already said. Black and white books. At what point do I no longer need to provide black and white books and know that my little guy can actually see coloured books really well?
I wouldn't say that I had any physical development of the difference between black and white and colour. I think the thing that's really, once the simple images start to hold the interest less, then just mix in some others that may stay with the black and white one, and you'll know pretty soon if they're not engaging with the book or with you in your reading of the book. And it may not have to do necessarily with some wiring, but just with the connection that you have with your baby.
Okay, thank you.
Good one, Carmen, thanks. All right, is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment or a question? Or just, I don't know, voice something? We don't get to talk to adults as much as we're used to at the moment. All right, well, do interrupt me, but I will say, sort of start.
Kate was going to say something. Kate, go.
Claire, just a question. What would be like your top, say, 3 books for a baby? You didn't go through them at the start, I don't think, but what's your favourites?
3.
Number 1?
Oh, those are the ones that you spoke about, the first 3?
They're certainly up there.
Okay. Yeah.
I would have to go to here and pull out a whole stack of books because I can't possibly choose just 3. I love this one. I think this is a lovely one. But I did choose these also for their progression, you know, for this is straight concepts and identification. This is animal sounds. This one is has a narrative, but still is about repetition and rhyme. So I've chosen them because they're really good with young readers. But, you know, it's pretty hard to go past any of the Harry Claries, particularly the first, you know, 20 or 30 of them. They just have great rhythm and great words, all sorts of things. Newer ones, more contemporary ones. Your local independent bookshop is great with advice for what's current. So I would always be saying classics like this are still current, but I'd also be looking for contemporary versions of that, because the way that the styles of story and styles of illustration move forward with us. So looking, asking, and your librarians will have some connection too, lots of connections to new stories. Talk to your friends, see what is being read by people in your playgroups when you're allowed to have them. Sorry, that's a horrible reminder that we can't have those at the moment. I have an extensive historic collection, and because I'm a writer, research for me is actually buying new books. Oh dear, what a trouble. So I'm always buying new stories as well. And they're research for me, you know, they're listening to language, looking at the way image works with words, all of those things. That's a curated collection. I go through it every 12 months and replace some of them, but that's what stays.
I used to find the That's Not My series really good for babies.
Oh, yes.
Even up until 2, my daughter still enjoyed those. You can find the little mouse in the picture. It's got all those opposites, you know, that's too soft, it's too rough, it's too, and there's tons of those in the libraries. Well, in our library, actually, in your library.
There are stories like those have a particular purpose. And exactly the same story in every one of them.
That's it.
Pretty much. So although I think there's 30 or 40 different titles, you only need to have about 4 of them to cover all the opportunities that are you know, offered by those sorts of stories. They will quickly become quite repetitive for you. But so they're nice strong pages. They're great ones that you can give once your child is big enough to hang on to them. You can let them have in connection with those all by themselves without you having to read them 100 times. Whereas some of the ones that sort of then come next are ones with narratives that you're happy to read and that mix a little bit less, still lots of concrete ideas, but also some slightly less concrete ones where the words aren't illustrating, the pictures aren't illustrating just the words, they're providing their whole other story as well. Actually, although those, That's Not My, have a mouse running through them, which is not mentioned in the narrative, but it's another thing for you start pointing out in the stories.
We always did that. Where's the mouse? There he is. You know, there was and the touchy-feely for my child who was less focused, that would keep her sitting a little bit longer. She was able to touch something in the book rather than, short sentences, a bit more hands-on, tactile.
And bedding down those ideas of sentences and pages and all of those things in a tactile way.
They're good.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Kate. Lovely. Well, I might, once again, please do jump in and interrupt if you'd like. I was going to sort of start wrapping up, but I thought I might, before I do that, give Claire the opportunity if there's anything else that you think we should cover or should think about that has sort of come to mind while we've been talking.
Not really, except that what Jenny was saying about listening to you as mothers. There are no bad questions. There are no wrong questions, only unasked ones. And it is not always easy to formulate those questions because you might feel like everybody should know that, but it doesn't work like that. And only by asking them can we, you know, offer whatever we might be able to offer you.
I have a question if it shows up. I have a lot of these like lift the flap, felty kind of books. Do you recommend like those as well as general reading ones?
They're a bit like the That's Not My series. They are, once your child is old enough to hold the pages and turn the pages, those soft flaps are fabulous because they don't come out quite as easily as the paper flaps do in every one of the lift the flap books that I have. No, they're great. You know, there are some that are better than others. The ones that are best are the ones that reveal underneath the flaps something of a surprise or an answer to the question. There are some that don't set it up in that way. I mean, the classic of that one is Dear Zoo, which has, you know, flaps all the way through. And, you know, I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me an elephant. He was too big. I sent him back. But you've got to reveal, which is answering the question that you set up, that you've set up. But if it's connecting, if your child is connecting with them, turning the pages, lifting the flaps, then they're getting meaning from it. And reading, at the end of the day, is an ability to gain meaning from text. Simple as that. And the meaning that they get from it may not be the understanding of the concepts there. It may also just be this movement from left to right, this turning of the page, the understanding that there will be some secrets underneath there. All of those things are really valuable things on this pathway, on this journey to literacy, to reading, to story.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Amy.
Hi. She's so big now.
She's so big. How does that happen? Look at her. Hello.
Oh.
So big.
We miss our baby.
Sorry?
We miss our baby bounce sessions a lot.
Oh, I miss it so much too. Oh, it'll be so good when we can all come back.
Yeah.
Who's that? Hello. She's beautiful.
They're all beautiful.
They are all beautiful. I know. All my babies are going to be growing up too. It's scary.
It's hard to
yeah.
Very hard.
Need some cheeks to smudge.
So good. She can see Elle on the screen. Look. Hello. Can you see Elle?
You can see everybody.
Oh, so gorgeous. Lovely. Hiya. Hi.
Just also, Claire, I did love the presentation, and Baby Bounce has helped a lot with me, like getting some of those concepts in, and just like your presentation about how even them just figuring out which way a book goes. Like I sit there with Millie now, so she's 7 months, and she will sit there and flip through a book appropriately, and like she makes like she's almost reading it but not really reading it, just noises and turn a page, which is just really cute to see. For me, who's a massive reader and loved my books, like I really wanted to bring that into her as well.
Yeah, there is one thing I didn't mention, but it is one of the really important things is for your children, your babies, to see you reading. for pleasure. So that if you can model that, it's like a do what I do, not just do what I say.
Absolutely.
It's really important to be able to do that as well.
And to get that idea that reading isn't or shouldn't be a chore.
And it's also not just for babies or children.
Absolutely. It's a lifelong.
Get those dads onto it too. My partner's, he reads on his phone. That's about it, you know. And I think you've got 2 girls, but a lot of research says boys especially don't see other men reading, and that can be an issue as well. I don't know if it's women tend to read more or not, but I know in my house that's definitely the case.
I know from a teaching background, it is more common for boys to be reluctant readers than girls.
Yeah, it is.
I think it's also something often about, as mothers, we offer our children the sort of things that we love to read, or to read in the way that we like to read. And this is a gross generalisation, but it's just sometimes non-fiction is a way in when fiction, which we all see as the only way to read in lots of ways, non-fiction is just as valid. So it may be that instruction manuals or, you know, other forms of magazine or reading are going to appeal to your child just as much as fiction might to other children.
And I guess that way
getting the mechanics of reading.
Yes.
You know, there's all sorts of things, and you're nowhere near ready for this. But you know, the first 3 years of school are spent teaching the mechanics of language, the physical putting letters together, having them make meaning, and then they stop doing that and start looking at the content, focusing on the content of those words, and then move on. So there's a lot of stages that happen along the way, and what you're doing at the moment is trying to tune in to what interests them, but trying to be broad enough that it might go outside your interests. The books that you don't necessarily love or connect with might be the ones that your child absolutely adores. And that's, if you can allow them to have that and support them in that, then the benefit is there for you and your child.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
I've just thought of one thing. So you've talked about reading from front to the back and how that's important. Is it also, could you point to the words as you're reading? Would that be helpful? Or is that just, if you think of it, do it, or don't worry about it?
At this age, if you want to, but there's probably, the benefit will come once they can sit with something for longer. Okay. And they are following, and they're starting to predict the text. So if they're starting to predict the text and read because they've been so familiar with something, then you can start to look at the individual words, and then you're creating an association between spoken word and written word, which then can move itself into, again, towards reading.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Good question. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. What I might do, I just thought of this, is if you do think of any questions or comments or anything that you've got to say, if you find the event on our Facebook page, and just maybe make a little comment or question under the event, and I can maybe find a way to get those to Claire, and I can answer them on behalf of Claire on the page, if that's appropriate. Other than that, I would like to thank you, Claire, so much, firstly for your presentation, and then secondly for coming and speaking to us all today. I think we've all gained a lot of interesting, not information, but just strategies and techniques, and just a new way of looking at how we're reading with babies and the purpose behind what we're doing, and just that reassurance about what babies are getting from books, and that sort of introduction to books, and how we do things. So thank you so much for joining us, Claire. Really appreciate it. And hopefully, I thank you so much. And I really hope that sometime soon we can do this again face to face. And we will hold, no matter how big your babies are by then, we will ask you to bring them along.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Claire. Thanks, Elle.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you.
See ya.